Hello Year 8, welcome to today's lesson on rounding to powers of 10 and one significant figure. If you could please write the title and the date and rule them off, and then have a go at the 3 do now tasks here. It should be quite nice and straightforward because you've done them in year 7 and earlier on in the year. Please pause the video as you do this. Good, so you should have for your answers 20, 30, 170, 380, 500, 1,360, 2,010 and 5,670 when rounding to the nearest 10. Next box is rounding to the nearest 100, so 100, 200, 700, 0, 100, 1,800, 3,300 and 2,000, and then to the nearest 1,000 you should have 2,000 and 2,000, 5,000, 6,000, 10,000, 4,000, 11,000 and 26,000. Brilliant. So have a quick look at this hook question for me, have a read. This is something you might choose to have a go at now, otherwise we'll come back to it at the end of the lesson and have a little look at how we'd solve it. Right, good, so our success criteria today is bronze, know how to round to a given power of 10, understand how to round to an integer to one significant figure. So remember, integer means a whole number, and then gold, be able to round decimals to one significant figure also. So first things first, how can you tell how many significant figures a number has? How do you identify the most significant? Well, we'll look at this first one together, 352. All of those numbers are significant. They all have a place value. So there are 3 significant figures in 352, but the 3 is the most significant. It's the first significant figure, 5 is the second, and 2 is the third. Then we look here. We've also got 4 significant figures, the 1, the 0, the 0 and the 6. Now the mistake students make is they think that the zeros aren't significant, and they are when they become within 2 other integers, okay? So here we've got 3 significant figures, because obviously here if you took that 0 out, you end up with 1.3, and 1.3 is not the same as 1.03. And then here we've got 2 significant figures, because significant figures begin after zeros, okay? So the first non-zero integer, and in this case it's the 2, and any integer after zeros included are significant. So the zeros don't count as significant figures. The 2 is the first significant figure because it's the first number that's not a 0. But if there was a 0 between the 2 and the 5, that would become significant. Right, okay, so let's have a little practice at this one first. So we're going to round 1,746 to one significant figure. Well, the 1 is our first significant figure, and the 7 is our second significant figure. So the 7 is in charge of whether the 1 changes. We know the rules of rounding. 5 or above you round up, 4 or below you keep the same. So the 1 stays, the 7 is greater than 4, so it rounds the 1 up here to a 2, and everything afterwards becomes zeros. So 1,746 to one significant figure is 2,000. Okay, right, some practice examples. So we're going to round 378 to one significant figure. The 3 is the first significant figure, so that's what might change. And the 7 is in charge of whether or not it changes. It's more than 4, so we round up. The 3 becomes a 4 and everything afterwards becomes zeros. With whole integers, you can't just change the first significant figure and leave everything else out. You have to replace them with zeros. Okay, so here we've got 5,223 rounded to one significant figure. So the 5 is our first significant figure. That's what might change. The 2 is in charge of whether or not it changes. And we know the rules of rounding. It's less than 5, so we keep that 5 the same. Okay, everything afterwards becomes zeros. Right, if you could now work through the questions on the right hand side, round all of them to one significant figure. Good, so you should have 20, 30, 200, 400, 1,000, 3,000, 10,000, and this one is wrong. You probably spotted it already. It should also be 10,000, okay, because that 2 does not round that 1 up. Okay, and we also know we've actually rounded to 2 significant figures here because we've got 2 values here. Okay, then we should have 100,000 and 300,000. Brilliant. Right, next thing, a newspaper reports a lottery win of £20 million. Well, let's write that down first. The size of the win has been rounded to one significant figure. What is the least possible size of the win? So what's the least amount of money they could have got to round up to 20 million? And what's the greatest possible size of the win, the biggest amount they could have won in order to round down to 20 million? Please pause the video and have a go at this. Right, good. Okay, so the minimum amount it could be is 15, because that 5 there would round this 1 up to a 2, and everything else will become zeros. We get 20 million. And then here, that 4 would not round the 2 up, it would keep it as a 2, and we know everything afterwards becomes zeros. Brilliant. Right, next thing, so on to our goal criteria. There's lots of work involved in our goal criteria. So rounding decimals to one significant figure. So the 5 is our first significant figure. That's what might change. So we'll look at the next number and the 4 might change it. Rules of rounding don't change. It's less than 5, so we keep it the same. And then it becomes 0.00. But when you've got numbers or just zeros after a decimal point, do you need them? We don't need to write them because they hold no place value on their own. So you can just write 5. Here we've got 3.94. So the 3 is the first significant figure that might change, and the 9 is in charge of if it does. Well, it's greater than 4, so we round up. And that becomes a 4, and everything afterwards becomes zeros. Again, because it's just zeros after the decimal point, we don't need them, so we can just write 4. Here's the next one. So the 1, the tens, is our first significant figure. The 6 is in charge of if it changes. It's greater than 4, so we round up to a 2, and everything becomes zeros. The zeros after the decimal point, again, have no value, so we don't need to write them, but we must obviously keep this one here, because if we get rid of that as well, you're saying that this number rounded to one significant figure is 2. Okay, we know that's not the case. Right, good. If you please have a go at these questions on the right, round them to one significant figure. So again, for the first one, put 1.4 equals, and then to one significant figure. Please pause the video as you do this. Okay, good. So you should have 1, 4, 8, 8, 10, 20, 90, 100, 300, and 500. Lovely. Right, next thing, so this is a little bit different now because we've got zeros at the start. So we know that zeros at the start of a number aren't significant. It's the first other number between 1 and 9 after a 0. So 8 in this case is our first significant figure. So I have to look at the next number. Does the 3 change it? Well, it doesn't because it's less than 5. So it becomes 0.80. But we know that because it's just a 0 here after the 8, it doesn't actually need to be written. So we know that we could just write 0.8. Right, 0.36. The 3 is our first significant figure. The 6 is what's in charge if it changes. The 6 is greater than 5. Oh, sorry, it's not greater than 5. It should say greater than 4. So we round up and we get 0.40. But do we need to write that 0? Well, no, we don't. So it's just 0.4. And then here, so we've got 2 zeros at the start, and we know zeros at the start of a number or an integer or a decimal aren't significant. So the first significant figure is the 6. The 4 is in charge if it changes. It's less than 5, so we keep it the same, and we know we don't need to keep that last 0. Okay, so it's 0.06. We'll have a go at this last one together. 7 is our first significant figure. It's an 8 here, so it's greater than 4. So we know that we round up and we get 0.080, but again, that last 0 at the end, because it's nothing afterwards, we know it doesn't need to be written because it has no place value, so it's 0.08. Lovely. If you could now have a go at the questions on the right, again, an example of writing it would be 0.65 equals 0.7. Okay, please have a go at the rest and pause the video as you do this. Right, lovely. So we should have 0.6, 0.7, 0.9, 0.01, 0.03, 0.08. Then these are the rest of our answers. I'm sure you're sick of hearing my voice. There you go. Lovely. Right, what we'd like you to do now is complete the worksheet titled Round to Powers of 10 and one significant figure, and then complete the relevant Hegarty math task. But we'll have a go at this true or false as well. So the zeros at the start of this number are significant. Think about it. It's false. We know zeros at the start aren't. The 0 in this integer is significant. Well, of course it is, because if you took it out, you're saying that 56, you're saying that 56 is the same as 506, and it's not. 0.099 rounded to one significant figure is 0.01. It's actually false, because we know that 9 is our first significant figure. That 9 rounds it up to a 10, which we've learned has a knock-on effect. So actually, it would be 0.1. When rounding to 10,000 to the nearest integer, the greatest possible value it could be is at 15,000. That's false because that would round the one up to a 2. It's actually that. 12,000 rounded to one significant figure is greater than 9,650 rounded to one significant figure. False, they'd actually both be the same. You get 10,000 for both. And then 885 rounded to one significant figure is greater than 789 rounded to one significant figure. True, because here you'd get 900 and here you'd get 800. Right, we'll have a quick look at the hook question again. So newspapers claim Cristiano Ronaldo's new Juventus contract is worth 300,000 per week when rounded to one significant figure. What is the minimum and maximum salary that Cristiano could earn? Well, let's work that out. Each week, so he earns 300,000 a week. What's the minimum maximum? It could actually be, because that's rounded to one significant figure. Well, the minimum is 250,000 because that would round up to 300, and the maximum is 349,999. How lovely would that be? That'd be splendid. And then to work out the rest, all you then have to do is multiply your values by 4. Get over 4 weeks, and then hopefully you know there's 52 weeks in a year. You'd multiply by 52 to get these ones here. Lovely. So we've been through our criteria. Please now go and have a look at the worksheet that you've been set and the Hegarty task. Well done.